Hey, it's Nicole. Welcome back to the Serial Entrepreneur Show. So excited to have you listening in today to the stories that only our guests can share. And I'm so excited to introduce you to Ben Risser. He is a fractional chief financial officer who started his career in aerospace engineering. I mean, talk about the guy you want on your team for details. Am I right? He was an engineer at the Boeing Company. Yeah, that Boeing Company. And his professional journey has taken him from that to his CFA, his Chartered Financial Analyst credential, to syndicating in partnership, multifamily real estate deals, and so much more. He's already shared with me all of the industries that he's covered and worked with, and I bet yours is on the list. Hey, if you're an entrepreneur who usually fast forwards intros just like this one, this is the podcast for you. Serial Entrepreneurs. Hey, just a reminder, our show is brought to you by SmartCookie Media, where we believe data tells a story, and not just any story, your business story. As a subscriber to the show or as a client, you'll get insights on profitable, data-driven marketing strategies that work for you and your business, your industry. Not some cookie cutter trends, no. Ideas that are led by your customer data so you know they'll work for you. Connect with me on LinkedIn or Instagram to learn more. Everything's in the show notes. Now, let's get back to the show. Ben, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me, Nicole.
I like to ask the same question every single time we get started with a guest. Tell me, how would you finish this sentence? You know you're an entrepreneur when?
You'd rather get a root canal than participate in the status quo for one more day because your desire to innovate is insatiable.
Oh my gosh. And I can't stand the idea of a root canal. Is there a story there?
My mom had to have several, and I was, front row seat to observe the fun afterwards.
Oh my goodness. So it is so true. We'd rather go through some of the most painful things than the status quo. I can't wait to dig in and hear more about your story. So what do you do? I shared a little bit, but what do you do? What's your day-to-day like? And tell me the name of the business that you own.
Yeah, my business is Provident Financial Services Limited. I am a chief financial officer for hire. So I seek to serve businesses that are in kind of that stage of growth where they're way out over their skis on accounting and finance as far as their, original team, or maybe they don't even have a team. They desperately need accounting and finance professionals in their business, but they certainly can't quite afford those folks full time. I can provide those services on a part-time basis at a fraction of the cost. And I serve, pretty much any industry, have a lot of experience in the construction industry, but entrepreneurs, I think, really need fractional CFOs, even if it's just on a quarterly basis, just to make sure that they don't, run out of cash, that they know like, hey, I need to start raising capital, 6-12 months before I run out of cash.
Right. So tell me a little bit more about those businesses. Is there a range in terms of dollar volume that you typically work with? Are they over 1 million? Are they over 10?
Yeah, I'd say for most fractional CFOs and for my business, fractional CFOs begin to make sense for businesses that are making on a minimum of 1 to 2 million and maybe up to 10 to 15. Because when you get up to 10, 15, 20, they're going to have a full-time controller, full-time CFO on staff.
Yeah. Okay, great. You did such a great job explaining to the audience what fractional is. And so I just want to shout out to you there because you were very, very clear on its part-time basis. So they get part of your time at a fraction of the cost. I mean, I don't think that's the point of the word fractional there, but it really, truly is that we get to slice up a piece of your experience, not of you physically, but, of your experience, your expertise, and not at such a high dollar amount, even quarterly. So I think that was such a great example because I think some listeners here might be familiar with hiring a consultant to tell them, hey, this is what you should do. But can you just define that a little bit? We've had someone else on the show, but I thought maybe you can give your spin on this isn't just a consultant who comes in and says like, hey, over there, do those things. This is what we suggest.
A consultant is typically more project-based, where they're coming in to speak into an issue or a challenge and help resolve it, but it can be a very short-term engagement, whereas fractional is really meant to be a financial executive partner to the CEO, because being a CEO or an entrepreneur can be a very lonely place. And it's really about partnership and just walking alongside the owner throughout the year, really filling that functional void between the bookkeeper and the tax accountant at the end of the year, and making sure that the business owner understands their financial situation and is able to be proactive and to move away from being reactive, which I think is where a lot of business owners and entrepreneurs start out. They're just reacting, they're putting out fires. And it's really the fractional CFO who can come in and start to put processes in place and systems where we have the data now to be proactive and be strategic.
Okay, so tell me a bit about your story. What makes you tick? What led you to entrepreneurship? Was there a specific moment or event and experience that you knew would make this your life's work?
Coming out of high school, I thought I was going to be either a truck driver or I was going to do auto body because, I was definitely a distracted, underachieving young person through high school. And my parents had at least the courage and the foresight to say, Ben's pretty mechanical minded. Let's get him into some kind of engineering program. I eventually got into a local technology college here in Lancaster, got my associates at MET and really learned everything I was supposed to learn in high school, learned how to study, learned the algebra and all this stuff everybody knows when they come out of high school. But always was passionate about aviation and always wanted to be on the design side. Like MET is very focused on manufacturing. So I, pushed myself and got into Penn State, the engineering program, graduated with aerospace engineering, a bachelor's from Penn State, took a job at Boeing. One of the reasons I went into engineering was because I was so visionary. I was very creative, always wanted to design things and come up with new things, solutions to problems. And when I got to Boeing as a junior engineer in the group that I was in on a legacy program, there wasn't a lot of room for innovation and bright ideas. It was like, this is a, 45-year-old aircraft, turn the crank and out comes the sausage.
Yeah, this is how we've always done it. And yes.
And so it goes back to my answer to that question where it's just like, I see so much opportunity to innovate here and I have no wiggle room to innovate here. And I just felt so cramped and restless. And I started reading the Robert Kiyosaki books and he really explained how people are wired differently. Like nothing wrong with wanting to be an employee. That's a great thing. The world needs employees. But the world needs business owners, they need investors, they need self-employed folks too. And he really helped me understand that I was an entrepreneur and that's why I was restless there. So I started studying business and economics and finance. And I just want to clarify to your intro, I do not have the CFA charter. I passed the level 1. So it's one of 3 exams. And then my second daughter showed up and life got pretty busy with an infant and a toddler running around the house and my
Yes.
wife working full time at the time. So I paused that, but the CFA is a phenomenal body of knowledge and it really is the lens that I couple with my engineering and entrepreneurial instincts when I look at a business and understand how does it create value and how do we reflect that in the financials. To continue the story, I eventually got laid off out of engineering, had been studying real estate, was under contract for a large multifamily syndication, syndicated that in partnership. So I went from full-time engineering to full-time real estate syndication. And really during that time, discovered my affinity and the gravitational pull towards the CFO role, that high level role of just understanding how capital needs to flow into and out of a project and all the functions and roles necessary for a business to operate. And so did 6 syndications of over 1,000 units, probably valued over 50 million. And we're starting to sell those off now, but pivoted towards fractional CFO work because real estate syndication is great when you have a full-time engineering salary, not so great when you don't. Real estate, as you know, can kind of pay when you buy and then pay when you sell and not much in between, not so great for a growing family. So I did have to pivot to being a service provider. That started in 2021 and here we are 2024.
Wow. Let's talk about real estate syndication for a second. So let's see, we're talking about an investment strategy that allows multiple investors to be a part, right?
That's correct. There's different rules under which you can syndicate, and it's SEC 506, which is an exemption that allows people to sell securities without a license if they're part of the business ownership. So SEC 506, A, B, and C have different rules. And we always did it under 506B, which is for accredited investors. You have to have a relationship. You can't generally market. But my partner was the fundraiser. I was the underwriter, back office, asset manager, construction manager, kind of wore all the other hats and built out those various functions of the real estate syndication business and then trained other people to replace me so that I could be more at the high level strategic CFO role. But it's certainly a challenge to get to the CFO role because you constantly are getting pulled down into the weeds.
Yeah, that makes sense. What was this project? You said 1,000 units. What are we talking about? Are we talking?
Yeah, so the 1,000 units would be the total of all six syndications. We were purchasing properties that were anywhere from 166 units to 220 units to 300 units. Sometimes these were multiple properties that were purchased together as a pair. But there's
We're talking multifamily. We're
yep.
talking retail. We're talking multifamily.
Yes,
Okay.
thanks for clarifying. Yep, that would
Yep.
be
Hmm.
multifamily. We purchased
Yep.
mostly in the Southeast and the North Carolina, South Carolina, Kentucky area.
Okay. So you were an investor in these?
I was a general partner. And
Okay.
so I was not an investor. I was on the manager side of,
Yep.
if we put everybody in an LLC, you have members and you have
Yep.
managers. I was one of the managers and basically helped, run the
Yep.
side of the business. And my partner was very much on the capital side. Jumping into real estate syndication, I highly recommend you partner with somebody who's far more experienced than you, which I did. My partner had a lot of syndications under his belt, had his own property management company. So he was very experienced. And I came alongside and brought value to the table that he could use. And so he was willing to partner with me because of the value I was bringing. And so it just kind of grew from there.
Yeah. Awesome. Tell me, because you support entrepreneurs, I think you're a really special person to ask this next question to. You yourself, I'm sure there have been things you've worked on that maybe you work it till it works, but there's something about entrepreneurs that I find are pretty special, that they work it till work it till it works, is what I always say. What have you learned about seeing people who can do this or supporting others who can take these new ideas and turn them into successful strategies?
I think it is a gift to be able to see an opportunity that nobody else is seeing, or maybe other people are seeing, but you're able to execute it and do it better than everybody else. That's a huge gift. And it takes vision, but it takes more than vision to run and grow a successful business. And so a lot of times entrepreneurs, they're incredible visionaries. They're great at rallying support for the product or service, but they may have no interest at all in the accounting and finance side. It's just a nuisance. It's just something that I have to like bite the bullet and do it once a year with my
Gotta slow
CPA.
down. I gotta actually do it. Right.
I see myself as a catalyst to bringing their vision to life by covering their financial and accounting blind spots and making sure that they don't get wrapped around the axle by something that was preventable and making sure that, when tax time comes, all their ducks in a row and we're just handing this with a bow on it to the CPA and the entrepreneur can continue doing what they do best and not get sidelined with stuff that is just not in their sweet spot. Let
Yeah.
them market and business develop and develop a product or service and build teams.
So I bet
Yeah.
there's a story there. Is there a story there that you can share with me? Either somebody that you realized that they were about to be wrapped around the axle. I love this coming from the engineer and financial officer. I love that metaphor. Is there a story there that either you saw something or you worked with somebody through it, maybe before they started working with you, they were only working with their tax accountant and their bookkeeper?
So I'll tell you a story that it didn't have a happy ending, but it is like instructional. One of my clients, it was just an absolute brilliant, creative engineer, and he designed children's toys. And he was, trying to raise capital to take his business to get into the Targets and the Walmarts. He was very visionary, but just really struggled with attending to the accounting and finance side of the business. And there really wasn't even really any bookkeeping. This happens with fractional CFOs. Sometimes they get hired when, the aircraft is out of control and there's 500 foot until you hit the ground. And there's really not much a fractional CFO can do to help those folks because they were engaged too late. And so that's kind of what happened with this client where he had a great product, but, by the time I was engaged and could even get my head around the financial picture because I was, just dealing with a stack of paper and had to put that into the accounting system to even build a P&L and L and a balance sheet to realize like, well, this isn't good. And, eventually we had to end that engagement because finances just weren't there.
Right.
But I wish the guy the best. He has a great product. If you want to raise capital, you need to have credible accounting. If you don't have credible accounting, an investor isn't going to have confidence in
Right.
anything you're telling them. Anybody can just throw numbers into a spreadsheet, but like the accounting needs to be credible and you need to have a credible financial pro forma to incentivize investors. And we just never got there. And it was kind of like too little too late.
Mm. Man, engaged too late. That is, as a marketer, there's plenty of times, not all the time, but there's plenty of times people come to me after they've been burned by an agency, or I'll hear things like, I was doing great. I was doing X number of dollars. They'll say their number and they're like, but now, man, I'm way behind. And this is kind of do or die. I heard that recently from a new prospect. And all I thought was like, it's a lot of pressure, not just on me, but like on her to perform in her next marketing strategy. It's so important to make sure people know that sometimes things are too late. So we have people who either own multiple businesses or they have multiple product lines, and they still might only be working with a bookkeeper and their tax accountant, or only their tax accountant. And then like maybe part of that team does their bookkeeping throughout the year. Talk to me about some of those that are considering making an investment, some of those that might be making a new purchase of a new business or taking on a business. When should they be thinking, and who should they be looking for when they're thinking about bringing on a fractional finance officer?
Well, they should be interviewing multiple fractional CFOs, and the time to do that, if their net income can afford a fractional CFO, which at this point, if they're looking to acquire other businesses or have multiple lines of business, most likely it does. And they should be hiring who has a heart of a teacher, who wants to help you understand what is a P&L actually telling you, what the cash flow statement actually telling you, what the balance sheet telling you about your business. They should be hiring one certainly before they acquire business so that they, understand what's their financial capacity to take on a business, what kind of cash runway do they need if the business is pre-revenue or what have you. But fractional CFO is going to come in. There's going to be a discovery phase where they understand your business. And it's really about understanding what metrics and KPIs, both financial and operational CEOs or the owners need to have right in front of them to be able to manage their business, to manage their team. And so it's the fractional CFO's job to understand what the needs of the CEO are and then make those modifications, improvements, developments to the accounting function and the tech stack that's in the accounting and, how that relates to the Salesforce or whatever ERP or CRM they're using, and make sure that the executives have timely and accurate data to run the business. And the CFO also can be building out financial pro formas for acquisitions, because really need to understand what kind of debt and equity you're going to need to take on a business and probably capitalize it so it'll be successful.
You shared with us that you have 4 questions that you like to ask.
Yeah. So financial situational awareness is something that, whether a CFO calls it that or not, it's their job to deliver financial situational awareness. And it answers 4 questions. Where have we been? Where are we at? Where do we want to go? And where are we actually heading? And to answer those questions for an owner requires financial literacy, which is the individual's ability to understand financial content and format, and financial intelligence, which is the high level, concise, actionable data that executives need to decide, are we going to hire? Are we going to invest in equipment or building or whatnot? So financial literacy and intelligence answer those 4 questions, which altogether comprise financial situational awareness.
What's that like? So how does that go with a client?
Yeah, so it really depends where the client's at when we start. But a lot of times, when we come on board, the bookkeeping need cleaned up, the chart of accounts, which is, if you're looking at a P&L and a balance sheet, it's all those rows on the P&L and a balance sheet. Those are the various accounts. And those accounts usually have to be overhauled so that they are appropriate for the financial analysis that executives need to have. And, they may not know what that financial analysis is, but it's the CFO's job to understand how to connect the dots between, how the accounting needs to be done so that the dashboard that's meaningful to the executive can be built. So there's a significant discovery setup period where you're putting the tech stack in place, getting the dashboards built. The most valuable thing is taking the business plan that the owner has and transforming it into a financial plan. So we can have all kinds of vision about, increasing market share and hiring salespeople, and all of that needs to be transformed into a financial plan. So we understand what are our revenue and cash milestones that we need to hit so that we can continue on this plan. And if we don't hit them, we need to tighten the belt so that we don't overspend and run out of cash. And so it's really about getting strategic as quickly as possible. And that requires the financial literacy piece so that we're getting beyond the basic questions of, what belongs where in the P&L or on the balance sheet, so we can talk about strategy and business plan.
Hey there, busy movers and shakers. I get it. You're out there conquering the business world, hustling day in, day out. Well, guess what? We've got something to amplify your efforts, something that's about to make your entrepreneurial journey even more exciting. Introducing our podcast production services, your ticket to sharing your knowledge and stories without breaking a sweat. We know your time is gold. That's why our team of podcast pros will take the reins, handle all of the behind the scenes stuff. From brainstorming fun topics, introducing you to incredible guests, polishing up those episodes, repurposing your content so you can share among lots of platforms. We're here to turn your ideas into a podcast that's as easygoing as your favorite chat over coffee. Imagine establishing your expertise and your authority, making connections all across the globe in just minutes a month. And the fun doesn't end there. Our data-savvy approach gives you insights that will help you fine-tune your content and connect with your audience even better than before. So join forces with a crew that's as enthusiastic about your podcast as you are about your business. The SmartCookie Media crew. Let your voice resonate, your stories inspire, and your ideas spread like wildfire. Level up your personal brand through the magic of podcasting, whether you choose audio only or video too. Are you ready to dive into podcasting? Your journey to share your knowledge starts right here because it's your voice, your podcast with our expertise. SmartCookie Media, turning your stories into conversations. So over here in the show, we talk a lot about like how we grow a business and manage family. Sometimes we're the default parent. We've got a lot going on. I've learned that there's something else that's going on with you, and I'd love you to share that with us if you're willing.
Yes. So, on top of all the things we talked about and just the career progression from engineering to accounting and finance,
Family and a
and
wife and
yep, we've got three beautiful children. And somewhere in there, we moved from Philadelphia to Lancaster. And while all this is going on, my vision, my physical vision is deteriorating. I won the genetic lottery with my parents, where they both had a kind of a gene in their DNA where when they had me, it resulted in retinitis pigmentosa. I was diagnosed in college. My peripheral and night vision have been deteriorating. I had lots of aspirations about all kinds of things I wanted to do. I wanted to be a pilot. I have all these hobbies and everything requires eyesight. And it's easy to get frustrated and be like, why is this happening to me? But it's had a very clarifying effect. When you're going blind, it sweeps a lot of distractions off the table. And it really makes you think about, what do I want my legacy to be? What do I want to accomplish with my life? And for me, my business, the fractional CFO business, is all about mission impact. It's all about strengthening families and communities with thriving small businesses, nonprofits, and private equity. And I believe when all of those things are thriving and the moral fabric of a community is strong, it lifts everybody up. And they're in a better position to be generous with their proceeds. And they can be generous towards things that continue the train of good that they're wanting to accomplish around the world and in their community. I think blindness is, while it's frustrating, it has the blessing that it's focused me on what really matters. And the fractional CFO thing is just kind of the how.
yeah. So, folks, he shocked me with this just a second before I asked that question. I missed it in any of the prep. I don't know how or why I missed it, but you said the words sweeps away the distractions. And in our intro to our show, we joke about how sometimes lots of things can feel like shiny objects and squirrels. And yet we've interviewed people who tell us that sometimes those distractions have been the thing that has led to their next big idea, that some lunch on a whim sometimes has led to a new offering that was the one that, they had been waiting for, that their audience had been waiting for. And so to hear you say that going blind has it swept away the distractions. Number one, reminds me of the metaphor of blinders on a horse, right? Like there's that, and how important it is that we do stay focused. And then when focus is forced upon us, the way that you just described, I think we all can take a minute to say, okay, yeah, let me figure out how to put my own blinders on. Because we all have something like that, right? There's always something that shows up that brings us back to, okay, why are we doing this? And you just shared that so beautifully. I, like you, agree that small business runs the world, but small business owners change the world, right? How we show up financially secure, able to take the loan or acquire the next business or acquire a business that, was a competitor, but they're ready to retire, whatever that is, being ready for those moments and building a business that our employees can count on, that our community can count on for us, our churches, our organizations that we like to give to, our nonprofits, charities. You've just articulated so well on why this is so important that people get this right. And man, so beautiful. This diagnosis for you, what does that mean for you? I mean, numbers, you just said not only your hobbies need eyesight, but even these pesky numbers might need some oversight. So what does that mean for you?
So the vision, using the word vision in multiple different ways here. So we're talking about the vision for my firm is to build a team of fractional CFOs and controllers and bookkeepers where I can transition to being more in the CEO seat and just steward the culture and the vision and do the business development and really like make sure that we are on mission and we're looking to work with people with companies with shared values. We're trying to accomplish the same things in the world. There are certain businesses that I don't care to have as customers because we're not trying to accomplish the same thing in the world. Right now, it's me, a controller, and two bookkeepers. And, God willing, it'll eventually be multiple CFOs, multiple controllers.
A collective, an
Yep.
agency, if you will. Yes. Okay. Yeah. And all with something you shared was a heart of a teacher.
Yes.
Yeah, I've even watched the way that you've spoken here today. I've worked with lots of engineers in the past, and sometimes engineers just view the world, I know they do, they view it as broken, but then they sometimes show up as grumpy, right? Because they have the burden to fix it, right? There's
Hmm.
grumpy and and sometimes, the lack of personality because they're so focused on something, like it just doesn't shine through, although they are certainly quirky. And I get a kick out of any engineer that I meet. And I watched you share that it's important that people have someone on their team that's a heart of a teacher in this role, because even if they understand it, they're moving so fast that sometimes, I'll joke with my husband, who is a financial analyst, accountant. I studied accounting for years. I joke that we're oil and water, and that I'm like, my role as CEO, as founder, as salesperson, marketer, visionary is to just throw it over the fence. Like, just get it over there. And someone has to make sure that the story is there, right? I'm also a tax nerd. Like, I mean, the things I won't even let him look at our taxes before I get him over to our accounting team, because I'm like, no, I got this. I got this. This is my creative space. I feel that way.
Hmm.
But I think when you said 2 different times you said it, and a clarification has been the kindest, most easy teachery way to correct someone that I've ever seen from an engineer, that I've ever seen from someone in your seat. I've never seen that. Now, yes, we're on a show, and yes, it's a podcast, and we have our professional roles to be a part of, but that is not always the default. And I just wanted to acknowledge you for it. I saw it twice with you and I thought, it's
Well,
different.
thank you. That's encouraging. I've been told that I have a gracious way of teaching, and I think you have to have that when you're approaching business owners and executives because they can have defenses up of that are pride related, ego related, or just like they have to come off in a certain way as a professional or an owner. And they might not want to admit that they don't really understand a P&L or a cash flow statement or the difference between net income and cash flow. Huge difference. And to be able to graciously and empathetically explain those things is how you can get strategic with them and really be a catalyst for them.
Yeah. 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 Is there anything that I didn't ask you wanted to share?
Most people I talk to, small business owners, like when I go prospecting, I don't think a lot of entrepreneurs and business owners realize the huge functional void between bookkeeper and tax accountant. They think if they have a bookkeeper and a tax accountant, they have everything they need. My heart in it is not that I'm trying to sell myself. It's like, no, you really need someone in the controller seat and you need someone in the CFO seat because there's this huge blind spot throughout the year between your meetings with the tax accountant, because the tax accountant puts your return together and says, oh, yeah, you had a good year. And here's your tax bill.
Right. Yeah. I always give the example to some that there is one thing to have a tax accountant who files your return. It's another thing to have some strategy with somebody who helps you plan for that return.
Yeah.
Wildly different skill sets.
And different tax accounting firms have more or less capacity to serve you throughout the year.
Yeah.
Some tax accounting firms, it's really hard to get them on the phone 9 months of the year. But a CFO is a value enhancer to the tax accountant because the tax accountant can say, hey, based on how last year went, some strategy going forward in this coming year on how to reduce your taxes. Here's some strategies of what you should be thinking about throughout the year so that your tax picture looks different and that you're not going to get slaughtered on taxes. And so they can give that
And that's only
advice.
one part of it, right? Like that's only one piece. So I don't mean to interrupt, but I can think of a couple businesses right now that are leaning on their bookkeeper and expecting that person to catch something for them if they need to catch it, to talk strategy with them. Oh, well, she'll cover it with me. No, she's not. It's not her skill set. And
Yeah.
so I think that is what, when you say like, I'm not even trying to sell someone, I'm just trying to say like, they've got to have these
Yeah.
people, this skill set, this experience in that seat in order to really get to where they want to go. Like you said, they set the vision. They said they want to go here, here, and here.
Yeah, there could be pitfalls that they're not even aware exist, or like, just being able to project cash flow is huge. And it's not a trivial thing to do. It's quite complicated depending on the business model. And at some point, the business is going to grow and become too complex for the owner to keep it all straight in their head and avoid having, overdrafts.
Yeah.
And so that's my plea is that, like get these folks in place on like a part-time basis, just so like you can continue your vision, that your vision is not derailed for something that was preventable. Because they have a lot of good to accomplish in the world. And that's a shame if they got derailed because of just a blind spot they had.
Yeah. 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 Oh, I'm with you. What is one of the key lessons that you've learned as an entrepreneur? Maybe it's something like a mantra you find yourself saying again and again.
Key thing I learned was as an entrepreneur, like business development is huge and you have to be consistent with it. You have to keep your foot on the gas with it because I'm an engineer. I'm happy being behind my screen with my spreadsheets and doing the work. But like
Yeah.
business development is the out of my comfort zone thing. So as an entrepreneur, like don't get so focused on the technical aspects of what you're trying to deliver to the market and forget about business development because revenue covers a multitude of sins. And business development, depending on what you're in, you can have, a 3 to 6 to a year sales cycle before somebody actually buys. And so you can't let up. You have to be intentional about it. And that was one of my mistakes when I started off in the fractional CFO. I just kind of was like, praying for referrals. Well, referrals are not predictable. Business development is super duper important. And if you don't do it, you won't have a business.
Yeah. 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 Oh, so good. JFK has a quote that is, the time to fix the roof is when the sun is shining. I could be, yeah.
That's so good.
And it can apply to so many things, but I always say it applies to marketing. Like
Yes.
the time to do it is not when. Like I just spoke to someone she's like, I'm always at $30,000 months, but the last 3 have been under 10. And I'm like, oh, this is not the time to now. Yeah. I mean, it is the time. She's got to do something, but it's also, why didn't you do it back then? Yeah.
Yeah, for
Yeah.
sure.
What is your definition of entrepreneurial success? When will Ben say, okay, now I feel like I've made it?
That's a great question. Entrepreneurial success, for me, it's when I see the mission being accomplished, like what I'm trying to do in families and communities, when small businesses are creating jobs and they're able to create jobs where those employees have a good work-life balance and where people have enough to be generous and, give to their local church or give to their local nonprofit that is meeting a specific social or spiritual need of the community. Healthy communities aren't just about having great jobs. Great jobs are a great part of it, but there's also the whole like nonprofit space that attends to the social and spiritual needs of the community. And then you have private equity, which, helps businesses go from startup to like, really increasing their mission impact because all those businesses have a mission that they're trying to do. So I would say for me, it's when I see the mission happening. And I think a major milestone for success for me in my business will be when I hire my first fractional CFO.
Yeah. Yeah. That's awesome. So you work with clients all over the country?
Yes, I do everything virtual. For some clients that are local, I'll stop in and have meetings once in a while, but everything's virtual. So we're really just constrained by time zones.
Yeah. Yeah. What's a good link for you? How can someone connect, get to know you a little bit better, understand those questions about their own business even more?
Yeah, so a great place to learn more about me is on LinkedIn. You just search for Ben Risser or Provident Financial Services Limited, and as well as my website, which is providentfinancialservicesltd.com. There's a free download on my website. So when you go to my website, shortly thereafter, you'll get a pop-up and it's my free download from Sales to Equity, what your financial statements are trying to tell you about your business.
Awesome. Awesome. Not just nighttime reading material, folks. Actually pour over it, look at it with some coffee or 2 cups, maybe 2 pots if needed, or reach out to Ben and he'll go over those things with you. Ben, so excited to have you. Thank you for being on the show.
Thank you so much, Nicole. I appreciate it.
You've been listening to the Serial Entrepreneur Show, produced by the team here at SmartCookie Media.